This is CBN NewsWatch.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm George Thomas. Today is Thursday, September 4th. We begin with news from the Middle East. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is reportedly putting on hold talks of annexing some of the biblical lands of Judea and Samaria. That comes as Israel is stepping up its attacks against the terror group Hamas. CBN News correspondent Julie Stahl brings us more from our top story from Jerusalem.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has reportedly removed discussions of annexing much of the biblical lands of Judea and Samaria off the agenda today, according to the Jerusalem Post. That move comes after a warning from the United Arab Emirates that annexing the biblical heartland, known as the West Bank, could endanger the Abraham Accords, saying the action would be a red line. The move to annex the area came in response to Western nations' decision to recognize a Palestinian state at the UN this month. Regional and local council heads from Judea and Samaria, along with Finance Minister Smotrich, laid out a plan for sovereignty over more than 80% of Judea and Samaria, leaving a number of Palestinian city-states in the West Bank.
Beyond the historical, biblical, and moral right of the Jewish people to their land, sovereignty has a paramount security role to prevent the establishment of an Arab state in the heart of our homeland.
U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee told CBN News that he and President Trump have not discussed the issue.
Generally, the president's attitude has been not just with Israel, but with countries around the world. You're a sovereign nation. You make your own decisions.
Meanwhile, Houthi rebels continue to launch missiles at Israel, including one with a deadly cluster warhead. They were all intercepted before reaching Israeli territory. In Gaza, Israel Defense Forces Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir says Israel is expanding combat and intensifying its operations against Hamas in order to achieve the objectives of returning the hostages and defeating Hamas. In a post on Truth Social, President Trump warned Hamas on Wednesday to set the hostages free. Tell Hamas to immediately give back all 20 hostages, not 2 or 5 or 7, and things will change rapidly. It will end. In Jerusalem and elsewhere in Israel, protests to free the hostages turned violent. Demonstrators set fire to a car near the Prime Minister's residence. Netanyahu says the war could end immediately if Hamas agrees to the conditions set by the Security Cabinet, including the release of all 48 hostages, Hamas disarmed, and Israel has security control in the Gaza Strip. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Thanks, Julie. Our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell is with us now from Jerusalem. Chris, is a two-state solution and declaring sovereignty coming to a head?
It really seems so, George. There's certainly a movement among many of the nations of the world to declare a two-state solution. We're going to see that come to a head probably in September 22nd when Saudi Arabia and France host this two-state solution conference. On the other hand, there's a lot of momentum here in Israel to declare sovereignty. There was a non-binding vote in the Knesset not too long ago that called for declaring sovereignty over Judea, Samaria, and the Jordan Valley. But it's a response to the call for many of these nations to declare a two-state solution, and they want to, go ahead of them. And however, it looks like right now the UAE has really put a stop on that, and because it actually happened the same time, George, about 5 years ago, there were declarations that Israel would declare sovereignty. But there was a shift back towards normalization, and then the Abraham Accords were signed in September of 2020, I should say. And so it looks like right now there's a very similar momentum. Will it be sovereignty or will it be normalization between maybe Saudi Arabia and other nations? We'll see, but they are definitely both coming to a head.
So to that very point, Chris, what is Israel's foreign minister saying about this idea of a two-state solution?
Well, George, he told a Belgium leading newspaper, he said, we've already tried that. There was already a Palestinian state in Gaza, and we learned that lesson. He was responding to Belgium's decision to go ahead and recognize a Palestinian state, one more nation that is doing that. He said it was a very strange decision, and he said the establishment of a Palestinian state won't depend on Brussels, but on Jerusalem, and Israel after October 7th really has no intention of creating a state that he believes would clearly be a terrorist state. And they evacuated all the communities, all the military bases back in 2005, unilaterally pulled out of Gaza. That vacuum was filled by Hamas. They don't want to see that repeated again.
Eyal Zamir, who is the IDF's chief of staff, what is he saying about the next stage of the war in the Gaza Strip?
Well, George, he says they're already operating in key areas around Gaza City, and actually in the city. They're entering into the second stage of what's called Gideon's Chariots 2. He says that the return of the hostages is a national priority, and what they're trying to do as they go into the city is they're trying to evacuate all the non-combatants in Gaza City so that Hamas won't use them as human shields. And the IDF just released a phone call today with one Gazan who told the IDF that Hamas is really trying to prevent those people from leaving. This man said, we're trying to go south. Hamas is preventing us on the way. Hamas is telling people to go back home. There's no evacuation. And what that does, George, is the Hamas can use these people as human shields and make it very difficult for the IDF to fight Hamas without hurting or killing other non-combatants. And so that's the dilemma going on right now. But there is a very systematic effort right now by the IDF to go step by step and retake Gaza City.
Yeah, Chris, last 30 seconds. As they go step by step to take over the Gaza City, what are they doing from a humanitarian standpoint?
Well, they're saying there has been 1,500 tons of medical equipment going into South Gaza. They're trying to set up medical infrastructure from the north to the south so that the people going south will have medical attention. They're sending in about 300 to 400 aid trucks a day. Most of them are food trucks. They have 3 distribution sites. We reported on one of them on the GHF, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, 2 more under construction. And then they've delivered almost 2.5 million food packages. They've also set up a new water line and about almost 5,000 family-sized tents, all for these people that are going down south. Yeah, it's a huge, huge operation. Our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell, as always, buddy, thank you so much, and we look forward to hearing from you in the days ahead. Back here at home, President Trump is talking about expanding the use of the National Guard to cities like Chicago, Baltimore, and even New Orleans to help bring high crime rates down in those cities. Some leaders don't want the help, and CBN's chief political analyst David Brody looks at the debate over whether the Constitution allows the president to do so. Take a look.
On the streets of Chicago, leaders and activists have been clear. They don't want President Trump sending the National Guard in for their high crime rate there. The president doesn't seem to care about that.
Well, we're going in. I didn't say when. We're going in. I'm the president of the United States. If I think our country's in danger, and it is in danger in these cities, I can do it.
Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker disagrees.
What President Trump is doing is unprecedented and unwarranted. It is illegal. It is unconstitutional. It is un-American.
So far, the courts have agreed. One judge recently ruled it was illegal for President Trump to send the National Guard to help quell immigration protests in California. That judge, along with Governor Pritzker and Democrats, point to the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878 that essentially says the federal government can't use the United States military to enforce civilian law. Now, there is an exception, however, and that's where the Insurrection Act of 1807 comes into play. Basically, it says that the president can use the military to enforce civilian law in order to suppress rebellion on domestic violence or to enforce certain laws in certain situations. It's a murky area as to whether the high crime rates actually meet that standard.
I think it is an acute crisis in some of these cities.
Zach Smith is a senior legal fellow with the Heritage Association. He believes the president could legally use the National Guard as long as they were used to protect federal agents sent to those cities to enforce the law.
One of the core clear exceptions to the Posse Comitatus Act is that federal troops can protect federal property and federal agents while they are enforcing federal law.
Presidents have federalized the National Guard before. Eisenhower did it in the 50s to enforce desegregation in Arkansas. President Johnson did it with the Detroit riots of '67, and George H.W. Bush did it in '92 after riots hit L.A. There's no precedent for high crime rates, however, which makes it untested constitutional waters for President Trump to jump right into. David Brody, CBN News, Washington.
Thanks, David. Coming up, see how the Pentagon is working to protect its cyber security after learning Chinese computer coders may have been able to gain long-term access to highly sensitive information. Stay with us. You're watching CBN NewsWatch. Welcome back to the broadcast. After a massive security breach, the Pentagon is taking stronger measures to lock down its most critical cyber networks. The move stems from a recent bombshell report revealing Chinese coders may have had long-term access to sensitive DoD cloud systems through a Microsoft contract. Now, new details have Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth promising to take this investigation to another level. CBN's national correspondent Caitlin Burke has that story.
The Pentagon is tightening oversight and demanding accountability from Microsoft while closing a loophole Secretary Hegseth calls an unacceptable risk to national security.
The use of Chinese nationals to service Department of Defense cloud environments, it's over.
Hegseth added the Pentagon issued a formal letter of concern to Microsoft and ordered a third-party audit of the digital escort program, which is what allowed engineers based in China to write code for undertrained U.S. supervisors to enter into DoD cloud systems.
I'm also tasking the Department of Defense experts with a separate investigation of the digital escort program and the Chinese Microsoft employees that were involved in it. These investigations will help us determine the impact of this digital escort workaround. Did they put anything in the code that we didn't know about? We're going to find out.
While Microsoft maintains defense officials knew about the program, a ProPublica report found no reference to China-based operations in the company's security filings. While alarming, experts say the blame doesn't fall solely on Microsoft.
This latest revelation highlights a variety of different failures, both on the part of Microsoft and on the part of the federal government. The Department of Defense failed at multiple points to ask tough questions of Microsoft about what its programs entailed.
Research analyst Jack Burnham with the Foundation for Defense of Democracy's China program warns this all comes as China has stepped up cyber attacks against the U.S.
Just a few months ago, Microsoft's SharePoint file system was allegedly infiltrated by Chinese hackers that had breaches at both DHS and other departments. China writ large has certainly expanded its campaign of cyber espionage and sabotage within the United States, targeting critical infrastructure, water systems, electrical grids.
For now, Hegseth says the Pentagon is reviewing each defense software vendor to ensure Chinese nationals are removed from the supply chain.
I'm committed, like the president is, to ensuring that our national security networks are secure.
Burnham says big tech companies looking to do business with the federal government should expect higher security standards and a real understanding of the risks that come with relying on China in cyberspace. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Washington.
Thanks, Caitlin. Here is a quick look at other stories making headlines from the CBN newsroom. The death toll from a crash of a famous Lisbon streetcar has risen to 17 after 2 of the 23 injured died in the hospital. Officials also say another 21 people were injured in Wednesday's crash, all from different nationalities. Portugal observed a day of mourning today after the capital's worst disaster in recent history. The 19th century Lisbon streetcar is popular with tourists. I have ridden those streetcars many a times. The Southeastern Asian nation of Myanmar is still dealing with the aftermath of a massive earthquake that hit 5 months ago. The quake killed more than 3,000 people, and the number is still climbing. The destruction hit at a time when Myanmar is in the middle of a civil war as armed militias and other forces are fighting the government that seized power from a democratic elected government. The country is working to rebuild hospitals, roads, temples, and schools. Still ahead, best-selling author Jonathan Cahn presents a template for biblical times in his new book, Avatar. Stay with us. You're watching CBN News Watch. Welcome back to CBN News Watch. History is repeating itself, and it is now being portrayed by living images, avatars of ancient gods. New York Times bestselling author Jonathan Cahn claims that in his new book, The Avatar, presents a template from biblical times. In this week's edition of The Global Lane, Cahn argues that God kings and God queens have returned and are influencing major political leaders, including Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, and Joe Biden. He believes that some of these avatars bear striking similarities to Old Testament rulers.
The actions, the time, even exact dates. I mean, this template foreshadowed 9/11, when it would happen, even the hour it would take place. And so each one is in this. Now, Biden, okay, Jehoram. Jehoram was a weak king. During his time, he suffers this, as you said, this disastrous withdrawal from Edom, which totally taints his reign. So we had Afghanistan with Joe Biden. He is Jehoram is behind, it's kind of the template of Joe Biden. During his time, his reign, there are a problem with border crossings, foreigners coming in unchecked. Okay, during his reign of Joram, so Biden, Israel is attacked by an enemy. The attack begins in the Gaza Strip. They go in, they take Israeli hostages in the reign of Jehoram, and they bring it back to what is the Gaza Strip. I mean, and in the latter part of Jehoram's reign, there's an issue of the king's infirmity. He is infirmed, physically impaired. Well, Joe Biden. And at the end of his reign, Jehoram has one son left, his youngest son. His name is Ahaziah. Biden has one son left, his Hunter.
I was going to ask you about that with Hunter and Jehoram.
Yeah. So you got Hunter, you got Ahaziah. Well, with the American Jehoram. Well, Ahaziah, the name comes from Ahaz, which means to seize. When you take that word to seize into Old German, it becomes Henten, thus the name Hunter. Hunter comes from the word to see. So you can't make this up.
So Jehoram's son was actually, his name was Hunter. The translation.
Yes, you could say that. Ahaziah is from to seize, which is a hunt, and Hunter as well.
Wow.
I mean, this is a template in the Avatar, what has been, what is, and what's coming.
And you say Kamala Harris. Tell us about her birthday, her support of abortion, her connection to a Hindu god.
With Kamala Harris, it's not about the person. We got to pray for the person. But her main issue was abortion. I mean, she was radical abortion. It was the blood of children. And the thing is that there's so much to this. There is actually a house of avatars in Hinduism. Kamala Harris comes from that house. It's the house of Brahman. She's given the name Kamala after a Hindu goddess. Her whole life is going to parallel the mystery of this goddess. I mean, uncannily. And the name, when she was born into the world, she was born on the day of that goddess. When the worshipers of that goddess they're chanting about the coming into the world of the goddess, she's coming into the world. The goddess is called Kamala.
The same day as that celebration?
The same day in India, yeah. Her name is Kamala Devi. Kamala Devi literally means Kamala the goddess. I mean, literally.
And Donald Trump. Trump means trumpet. Tell us about the significance of the blowing of the shofar.
Well, Donald Trump was actually born on a day that ushers in a biblical holy day. He was born on Friday, ushered in the Sabbath. Every Sabbath, there is an appointed scripture to be read for that Sabbath from ages past. So what was the scripture of Donald Trump's birth? It's God. At the end, it says, God says, bring forth an instrument, a vessel, a trumpet, a trump. So literally all around the world, while he's being born, they're reading about God bringing a trumpet to the world. A trumpet is loud. A trumpet is disruptive. A trumpet is think, oh, that's too much. Well, that's what he is. The trumpet doesn't have to know what he's doing to be used. The trumpet is a vessel used of God. So despite all the other things, Trump is used of God. And here's the other thing. that when the trumpet was sounded, it says the enemy will flee, or you'll defeat the enemy. Well, for ages, Jewish people during exorcisms have blown the shofar, and spirits flee, according to that. Well, Donald Trump is a trumpet. So think about this election. You have two vessels. A trumpet's a vessel, an avatar is a vessel. So you've got a man named Trump, trumpet, and you have a woman named Goddess. And the Trump sounds and the goddess flees. If Kamala Harris had won, think about this. America's born to be a one nation under God, to be governed by God. We would have been governed by one called the goddess.
Okay, so the trumpet gets rid of these demonic forces, but you say in the book, if you don't replace them with God, exactly, something else comes back or comes in.
That is it. If we change the government, but we don't change people's hearts, the unchanged hearts are going to change the government back. The gods will return. So the thing is that we need revival. The only thing that can save America is revival.
Well, we're seeing pockets of that around the country.
Yeah.
Okay, the book is The Avatar, The Return of the Ancients, and the Future of America.
Yes.
You've just given us a little taste. Okay, Jonathan Cahn, a pleasure to see you.
Gary. Likewise.
God bless you.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Thank you.
And you can hear Jonathan Cahn discuss more of the revelations detailed in his new book, The Avatar, on this week's episode of The Global Lane. Watch the full interview tonight on the CBN News Channel at 8 Eastern. You can also see it on the CBN News app or on YouTube. Coming up, see a little boy's breakfast adventure that ended with a police escort. Stay with us. Well, a Florida boy may have just earned himself as the title of Chick-fil-A's biggest fan. There's nothing strange about a five-year-old boy enjoying his breakfast at Chick-fil-A, but what caught employees' attention is that this little kid, he was there all alone. Little William snuck out of his home one morning while his parents were sleeping to grab breakfast. Staff treated him to a sandwich while police asked if the boy could show them how to get home, which thankfully he was able to do.
To the back of my patrol car.
Are you going to get me in jail?
No, I'm not going to put you in jail.
That's a good question there, William. He was reunited with his stunned parents, who say they think he understood the seriousness of what he had done. The next time William returned to Chick-fil-A, guess what? He came with his parents and the police officers who brought him home. That is so cool. Well, folks, that is it for this edition of CBN Newswatch. Remember, you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel anytime or online with cbnnews.com. Also, tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here by emailing newswatch@cbn.com. We hope you will join us again next time. Until then, goodbye and God bless.